Gravity Falls, a show of humor, mystery, and casual viewing. Unless you're me. My name is Christian. You're probably wondering why I'm dressed as Tipper Pines and about to rewatch the entire series. Rest assured, there's a perfectly logical explanation. Alright, now we move on to Hand That Rocks with Mabel. And this is definitely another big episode as far as continuity of the series. We get introduced to the character of Gideon Gleeful, who is definitely going to be a main character within season 1. And pretty much Gideon Gleeful, he's like a 10-year-old psychic televangelist kind of character. And he runs a place called the Tent of Telepathy, where he has a bunch of different shows where he kind of practices kind of telepathy on people, where he can supposedly like read people's minds and kind of control people's actions. And he's also a big rival of Stan Pines, which is kind of funny having that kind of contrast of Sam Pines, who's like an old man, and then Gideon Gleeful is just like this little kid. And then we're also introduced to a couple other characters like Bud Gleeful, who is Gideon Gleeful's dad, who runs kind of like the Auto Mart shop right by the Tent of Telepathy. And he's kind of like Gideon's manager in a way, and kind of like, you know, his hype man. And we'll get more into his character down the line for sure. But the episode opens with the Pines family and Seuss watching a commercial for the Tent of Telepathy. And then Stan obviously being very jealous of the success that Gideon has. And then Dipper and Mabel kind of being curious about, like, is this guy who he really says he is? So then they go to one of his shows and he has this big like song and dance, and he's kind of supposedly controlling all these different people and their different actions and kind of like reading their minds and everything. So Dipper and Mabel kind of have like opposite reactions of them. Dipper is very like skeptical of him, and then Mabel is kind of like entranced by him, and then Gideon kind of sees this as an opportunity to kind of get in with the Pines family. So then he eventually asks Mabel out on a date, and Mabel kind of just thinks of it as, you know, like a play date or like a friendship kind of thing. But then Gideon kind of obviously wants something more. So then as the episode goes on, he kind of becomes more and more persistent in trying to get Mabel to fall in love with him and everything. And then Mabel's kind of becoming more and more resistant. Then all kind of comes to a head at the very end, where Mabel actually asks Dipper to kind of break up with Gideon for her. So then Dipper actually does that, and then kind of goes to this place called the Club, which is the interior is kind of like a reference to the show Twin Peaks, which was an inspiration for Alex Hirsch. So then Dipper tells Gideon that Mabel's not interested in him, but then Gideon kind of takes it the wrong way and then assumes that Dipper is kind of the one that's kind of come between them. So then they have this kind of whole big confrontation at this abandoned warehouse. But then eventually Mabel comes to Dipper's rescue, and they're able to find out what Gideon's really up to. And then we get the whole big twist of that Gideon actually has this amulet that actually can kind of control people. So he's completely a fraud. He doesn't actually have telekinetic abilities. So then Mabel destroys the amulet, and that gets rid of Gideon's power. And then Gideon swears vengeance on the Pines. So not only does he hate Stan Pines, but now he also hates Dipper and Mabel and is out to get them. And that kind of becomes a plot point later down the line as the season goes on. But then we kind of get to the very end of the episode where Gideon is kind of swearing revenge on the Pines family and has these kind of like little wood carving replicas of the characters. And then we kind of have like the big moment of the episode where Gideon's trying to find a way to take revenge on the Pines. And then we realize that he actually has journal number 2. So now we know where the second journal is. And then now the big question is, okay, who has journal number 1? Answer will definitely be brought up again as we get to the season finale. We also have a cryptogram at the end that translates to Carla, why won't you call me? Which is a reference to the beginning of the episode where Dipper, Mabel, and Seuss are watching the commercial for the Tent of Telepathy. And at the very end of the ad, you hear a disclaimer by Bud Gleeful, and it says, Carla, I've always loved you, but I never had the guts to say it. And the name Carla is a reference to the character of Carla McCorkle, who will definitely be brought up several times throughout the series. But yeah, overall great episode, a lot of different revelations in this episode, and a lot of like main characters were introduced, and a lot of plot elements that get introduced in this episode that will definitely get paid off at the end of the season for sure.